So I thought a fun little game to start is, how many years do you think it's been since I graduated from high school? Any takers? 10? Oh, we are friends, yes. I'm ignoring yours. Any others? If you said 10, we are very good friends. If you said 20, that's fine. But believe it or not, I know you can't believe it. I know I don't look it, but it has been 30 years since I graduated from high school. So I have a picture, I think, up here from my commencement ceremony. There you go. Cute young guy there. And I knew you would be like, that's not enough. We want more. So I have one of my senior pictures up here. Look at that. Oh, it's not funny. It looks great. You got the nice early 90s sweater going on. You have some glorious hair that went somewhere. Steph and I's youngest child, she is going to be a freshman in high school this year. And she recently somehow stumbled on these pictures, the previous one. And she looked at it and said, "Dad, you used to look kind of decent. What happened to you?" And it wasn't like she was making fun of me. It was a genuine question, like, do you have a disease we don't know about? What happened to you, Dad? And I said, "Honey, it's called aging." And she had this puzzled look, and I felt great joy saying, "And it's coming for you too. One day you're not going to look as cute in the mirror as you do right now." But when I see those old photos from high school, besides laughing at how much my appearance has changed, I also think back to who I was as a young person, and frankly, I just realized how much I didn't get it. Things that I thought were important really weren't important. A lot of things that mattered, I ignored. Some of the things I did or was involved in, maybe like some of you, was just plain wrong as I look back. And I think one of the challenges that parents have, many of you are parents, is trying to help, like your 14-year-old, realize what matters and doesn't matter. Yes, you're really into that cute boy, or you want to be the most popular girl on the drama team, but it doesn't really matter. And one of the things we struggle through is, because it's understandable that a 14-year-old is a 14-year-old, but really what we're trying to do without them knowing it is trying to get them to not focus on things as much that matter when you're 14, but that will when you are 30 or 35. Because I don't know about you, but when I look back, some of the coolest guys at the parties literally are now incarcerated. Some of the gals that everyone thought was the best had a very messy life within 10 years. But the opposite also happened. Some people that struggled in high school and didn't fit in are doing quite well all of these years later. And I think our Creator is trying to do something similar with us full-grown people. Pursuing what is best for us long term, what reality is like on the long haul, not just what we want today or next week or maybe even next year, maybe even for a long haul that extends beyond this world. Obviously, a teenager, because they haven't experienced much, has a really hard time imagining how a terrible decision at that age can bring so much pain down the road. And so, like any loving parent who doesn't just let their child do whatever they want, anytime we're like, "No, you're not doing that," they just think we're a big pain in the butt because they can't see where it's going. And I wonder if, again, the same thing happens with us. That some of the divine warnings that we even find in Scripture just feel no fun. That already you're thinking, wasn't there something else I could have done with a free day on a weekend besides come listen to some old guy talk to me about from the Bible about maybe something that's not right in my life? I admit sometimes when I'm sitting out there and not standing up here, I can feel that way. But loving parents do what's best for their kid regardless of how they feel in the moment. And our Creator is even more loving and more good and more beautiful than you and I can imagine. Okay, well, maybe this is your first week. If so, we're glad you're here. We love having visitors. But I want to start with something kind of basic, if you will. I want to define kind of an old-timey religious or spiritual word: sin. And I want to apologize at the beginning. I'm not trying to offend, but this is one of the best definitions for an old-timey word like sin that I've read. From Francis Spufford from the UK. What we're talking about here is not just our tendency to lurch and stumble and screw up by accident. What we're talking about is the human propensity to F things up. That's his definition, which is about as good as I've found for sin, is we all have this propensity. We're not trying to, but we're just kind of oriented to kind of F things up. Another Brit from 100 years earlier, G.K. Chesterton: original sin is the only part of Christian theology which can really be proved. So even if someone's not a Christian and they're not sure they buy it, they would say, like, yeah, there is this kind of human propensity that everyone has to kind of mess things up. Now, I want to be clear, historic Christian teaching is not that you are a bad person or that you're evil, but it is clear that you certainly have the potential to become a bad person or evil, that we are all sinners. We all have that propensity to F things up. And therefore, part of what Christian teaching says, over 2,000 years of history, is if you and I are going to live well, if we're going to live whole and integrated and mature lives, we're going to open ourselves to the Spirit of our Creator, to partner with Him to work against our natural inclinations. We're intentionally going to have to go against our grain. Kind of like a wise teenager. I know that can be an oxymoron, but kind of like a wise teenager who realizes following my gut or all my feelings is not always that helpful for me. The ancient Jewish text, the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, chapter 14. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Again, mentioning that propensity. There's a way to live life that to you and I just seems, well, obvious, or this makes sense, or I want to do this, but it doesn't always work. I had found out last week that one of my friends' partner was incredibly ill in the hospital. So I dropped everything and went over to the community regional medical center, got to the room. Only the nurse was in there, and the nurse let me in, said my friend had left with some family, they'd be coming back. So I sat there alone in critical care with this individual that I had never met before, who later last week left this world, someone who was younger than me. And as I sat there with all the pumps and the machines, and obviously they had no idea I was even in the room, I didn't know what to do, so I just started praying. Prayed for the patient, prayed for my friend, prayed for the family, before they came back and gave me a hug, and maybe it was the longest anyone's given me a hug in my life. But as I was praying for them, it seemed like the Spirit kept kind of coming back to me in some ways, at least to my soul, with this sense of like, Brian, this person's younger than you. This life really, really matters, but it's no joke. And it doesn't last very long. And what our Creator warns people about, It's not because he's trying to ruin our weekend, but it's the opposite. It's because he's loving and cares. The words of Jesus himself, John 10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Well, that was a little bit of an intro. We're continuing in our series, Try Less, What Jesus Has to Offer. And I admit that my portion for this week, my little portion of the series, may sound pretty different. I'm actually going to emphasize the need for action. So maybe we would say what we are trying less is trying less of our normal, typical routine and way of life. Let go of that and open up to something else. And today I'm going to talk about historically one of the 7 deadly sins, not the exciting ones like wrath or lust. Those are exciting. People make movies about those. But one that's called sloth. That doesn't sound terribly exciting. If my daughter were here, she would say, yeah, that sounds like a talk like an old man would give up front, and wagging their finger at people. You need to watch out for sloth. Fair enough. But I think we'll find that finger wagging back at some of us as well today. All right, going back to that ancient text, the book of Proverbs, chapter 24, verse 21. Fear the Lord. Verse 30. I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense. Thorns had come up everywhere. The ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed and learned a lesson from what I saw. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. Now, sloth, the deadly sin of sloth, is a little different than some of the sins of commission. Like wrath is a sin of commission. It's something actively you do that you shouldn't do. Maybe displaying anger towards someone, maybe even being violent towards someone. It's an action. Where sloth is a sin of omission. It's what we didn't do. So here's my little definition for sloth, Brian's definition. Sloth is neglecting to take proper, needful action. Sloth is choosing to remain passive when intentional, positive action is needed. Choosing to remain passive when intentional, positive action is needed. Now, I know some of the old people here, like me, are like, it's about time. I know who needs to hear this. My kid, they need to hear this talk. Maybe all of the younger generation together. And yes, we will start with them a little today. But from the outset, I want to give kind of an apology. I'm going to stereotype us all way too much into 2 groups of people. And I know your life is more complicated and nuanced. All human lives are than to fit into one of 2 categories. But it's probably the easiest way for me to communicate today. So please forgive me and do not display the sin of wrath at me afterwards. Okay, so my first group that I'm overgeneralizing, but start there. My friends who are young or creative or simply chill. Young or creative or simply chill. You know who you are. Our popular culture loves you, or at least finds you entertaining. I mean, we laugh when someone pulls a Homer. Or everyone loves the dude that abides. Who doesn't love the dude? This is why we champion influencers, where they're just chilling, enjoying the good life. So yes, again, I am going to sound like a cranky old guy today. But if you are young or creative or just super chill, I have 2 reflections I'm going to offer you. Number 1, A chill life that just goes with the flow usually misses the mark. It usually does. Again, back to Proverbs 24:30. I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense. Verse 34, poverty will come on you like a thief and scarcity like an armed man. Now, does this mean, hey, kid, go out and get a job? Sure, that could be an implication. But I think there's more here. There's a sense that if you and I are aligned inwardly with the values of our Creator, we will actively cultivate a life of virtue. We don't stumble into a good life. We have to actively cultivate it. A few other brief passages from the Bible. Paul, 1 Timothy 5. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Says if you are not actively trying to care for and help the people that matter most to you, your family, that's a sign that you're in a bad place, that there's something really off. Also, Paul, Ephesians 4, anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. So certainly there's this implication, if you and I trust Jesus and his teaching and his way of life, that we're going to quit being a thief. But there's more. It's we're going to lean into work to have something to bless other people. We're going to be busy to help people with what we're doing. And then Jesus himself, Matthew 7, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. I don't know about you, but that's an ouch. Jesus kind of says flat out, if you are going to find the kind of life that you are called to live by your Creator, you're not going to just go with the flow like everyone else. You're going to choose a very unusual path. And there's kind of the implication that those of us who just float through life, when we are at the end of it, like that dear soul that I saw in the hospital, we will realize that in many ways our life was a failure. I had a conversation last week with a woman who's about my age, who has had largely a very blessed life, but right now is filled with anxiety. And I don't normally say this, but she probably should be. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the details, but it looks like something big and bad, tragic is coming her way. Something that's not her fault, something she can't control, but something that will probably permanently alter her life negatively. Try to imagine the worst thing that could happen to you, and it's something like that, probably coming for her. So, what do? I empathize, I tell her I'm sorry, I pray with her, ask what I can do. But at some point in the conversation, I said, so what's your plan? And she said, what do you mean? I was like, well, this thing's coming. What's your plan about what you're going to do after it happens? And she looked surprised. I was like, no, I'm not saying there's anything you're going to be able to do to stop this tragedy, and it's probably going to be bad. But what is your plan about how to live once that comes? And she said, I've never even thought about that. And friend, there is too much tragedy, too much suffering, too much pain in this world, way too much. But the only thing that makes suffering and tragedy worse is to experience it and not have a practical plan about what are you going to do in it. Life is too important. Life is too hard. You are too important. Our God matters too much for you to just kind of float through life. Number 2, my second reflection. It's not your fault if you struggle with slothfulness, but you are still responsible to partner with God and become someone who rises above it. It's not your fault if this is your struggle, but you're still responsible to rise above it. So how do you know if you're someone who's struggling with this? What goes on internally? And again, let me define sloth: neglecting to take proper needful action, choosing to remain passive when intentional positive action is needed. So how do you know if this is you, if you struggle? Well, if somebody asks you what's your plan about something, and you say, I didn't know I needed a plan. Or if people are frustrated with you and they're being kind of cruel, they might say things like, I need you to live in the real world, or I need you to grow up. Maybe inwardly, you might have times where you feel like, I really should do this, it matters, but I don't feel like it today, so maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Or if you get some free time, you might spend the day in bed, or spend the day in the pool with a drink in your hand, or at least spend half the day playing video games. Now, there's a technical term, if this is you, that psychologists use, and I'm going to use their methodology, the Big 5 factor model, which is used by researchers all over the world. Sorry, it's not the Enneagram, it's not Myers-Briggs, but the Big 5. But if you are someone like who I just mentioned, the technical term that would be used to describe you is you are low in conscientiousness. People that are low in conscientiousness tend to be unorganized, late everywhere they go, they don't think ahead very often. Now, where does this come from? Well, it's partly biology, partly God created you this way. You were born with a certain chemistry, because there's some gifts this way. People who are creative tend to be like this. People are more fun, people who are able to roll with change, people who are good at innovating and creating new things tend to be low in conscientiousness. There's certainly some gifts that we all need if this is you. But it also comes from people sometimes who grew up in a chaotic context. They had a lot of stress when they were young, and they learned the hard way that they always need to keep their options open. They need to be able to pivot in a moment's notice, don't plan ahead, don't expect too much, be ready for anything in the moment to change. So if this is you, you're not doing something wrong for this being your default, certainly. But, as Spufford says, you do have that human propensity to F things up. And so you likely need a chosen spiritual practice, activities that are the opposite of your natural tendency. If you are going to become a more whole and virtuous person, all people do. All of us, if we're going to be whole and integrated, probably need some chosen spiritual practices that we choose them because they are not like us, because they go against our grain, because they build up something new that is not normal for how we tend to operate. So let me offer 3 possibilities for you. It's not gospel, you don't have to, just a few ideas. If you're like, I'm one of those low in conscientiousness people. Number 1, what would it look like if you committed 5 nights a week, you are cleaning up the kitchen no matter what? Not your mom, not your roommate who's hyper-organized, but you're going to do it. Because maybe it would be helpful for you to have something every day as part of your routine where you're using your body to bring structure and order for others that you live with. That could help them. Number 2, maybe you consider making a commitment. You are not going on your phone in the morning until you have worked out physically and read some ancient wisdom like from the book of Proverbs. where you make a commitment, I'm going to hit the weights, or I'm going to go for a run, and I'm going to spend a little time in the Bible, and then I will go on my phone. So that you're kind of orienting yourself first thing in the morning is hard physical activity and opening yourself to a perspective outside of your natural way, then you will go on your phone. Or maybe a third suggestion. Maybe you want to buy coffee for someone that you admire, someone who you really look up to their character. And over coffee, you ask them, tell me about your daily routine. If I were with you all day, like, what's your routine look like during the day? And then afterwards, you pray to your Creator and say, is there one of those routines of that person that I should commit to? Not all of them. You're not them. You're not going to be them. You shouldn't be them. But is there one routine that goes against my natural wiring that I should take on? Because God's better future for you will probably begin when you choose activities that you don't always feel like, that go against your grain. Now, again, you are wired this way for a reason. You bring joy, you make life interesting. I'm not saying you should become a completely different person. You don't need to become like your dad or your sister, the accountant. But don't miss out on the life God has for you because you only go with your gut all the time. You probably need something that's bringing out something different from you. Okay, well, let's move on now to your dad or your sister, the accountant. So I said it was unfair. I was dividing us into two groups. The other group. So these are my friends who are older or organized or productive. Older, organized, or productive. I have one thing I want to say. Slothfulness means more than you think. It doesn't merely mean chilling out when you should be busy. The sin of sloth also means neglecting the most important matters for mere busyness. That's also part of what sloth means. And I'm not just making that up. If you read all the old Christian writers, Evagrius of Pontus from the Eastern Church, Gregory the Great in the 6th century, St. Thomas Aquinas, they would all say this is part of what slothfulness means. Being busy, being productive, making things happen, checking things off, accomplishing goals, but neglecting what matters most. All of us know in this room that someone can live a failed life because they are drunk all the time and just lost on YouTube. Sadly, it happens plenty. But the best Christian minds historically would also say there are people who are super active and get a whole bunch done, but are living a failed life. And our popular entertainment reveals this. Go back a couple generations, The Godfather. What's maybe Michael Corleone's most famous quotation? It's not personal, it's strictly business. Who was he saying this to? Someone he's about to murder. So Mario Puzo, the irony, we're supposed to feel the irony. I tend to think like murdering me is probably one of the most personal things you could do to me. But it's supposed to hit us that way, that these individuals at this time, mid-20th century Italian mafia, have got to a point where they think, you're going to kind of understand that I'm going to take your life because, I'm trying to make money. Or think of maybe the greatest serial drama ever created, Breaking Bad, where Walter White transforms into Heisenberg. Has a legitimate need, family needs more money, but ends up cooking crystal meth, again, murdering people. There's a theme here. Thinking he's doing this to help his family. The writers of popular entertainment, ideally, they're not just trying to pull us in because people are getting whacked or somebody's cooking out in the desert and wondering if the feds are going to find them. These are extreme examples, but they're hoping that when we watch them, that we will think about our own lives. Maybe we don't live as an extreme life, but we think, is there something I'm doing that's working, but it's kind of missing the point? Is there something I'm successfully pursuing, but it's hurting other people in my life? Jesus, Luke 12. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Do you see what Jesus is saying? There is a way of life, a pattern that makes you successful at work, that gets you a promotion, that maybe helps you feel better about how you look when you're in front of the mirror, but that is missing the point of everything that matters. Again, Jesus, Mark 8, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul? So how do you know if you are this person, known as being highly conscientious? Well, just a few things to consider. Maybe you have a tendency to clean things that other people don't think it needs to be clean. You're one of those people that cleans out the inside of a trash can or your garage floor. Maybe you relax by working out. Or if you get some free time and you want to unwind, you do activities that other people do for a job. That's how you unwind. That's what it looks like to be high in conscientiousness. You're likely an all-star at the office, or you successfully run your own business. You probably run your own home. You might help run Midtown. I don't know. There's a good chance. We need you. You're a gifted person. But please remember that constant activity and incessantly getting things done can be a very clever way that makes you money while you're avoiding the things that you need to pay attention to. Because you know this, there's different aspects of who you are. You have your intellect, your psyche, we'll call that for your complex inner feelings, your body, your spirit or your soul that connects with God, your personal relationships. These are all a part of who we are. Any parts of these major aspects of us that if we ignore them over time, they will warp us and cause lots of problems. Maybe not today or next week, but over time. And sometimes this is what we do. Some parts of life come easy for us. Some we feel awkward, we're not even sure what to do, it's problematic, we don't know who to talk to or how to talk to someone else in our life, so we ignore it. But if you ignore any of these areas because you got some more CrossFit to participate in, or you got to wash that boat, or you need to crank out another spreadsheet, in the long run, it will hurt you and other people. You also have a human propensity to F things up. And it's maybe not just because you chill too much, but it's still there. Before I moved to Fresno, I was a full-time pastor for 16 years in Pennsylvania. And in that role, I've had the privilege of being with people in the worst moments of their life. and I say it as a privilege because it feels holy, but to be there in the midst of suffering. Being in the room right after someone's partner overdosed on drugs. Being in the room as a child breathes their last breath. All sorts of cancer. Again, there's no shortage of suffering in our world. But my experience says people suffer, people hurt, we have trauma, we have anguish, we mourn. But the individuals who I talk to who for long term have frustration, a sense of hopelessness for years and years that makes them want to give up, is normally when they have a parent or someone close to them who makes good money, who has an immaculate office, who's great at juggling projects, but never makes time to listen to them. They're under the authority of someone who's not opening themselves to the Spirit and who are living their own version of the deadly sin of sloth. They choose efficiency and effectiveness over soul depth. And if you're one of those people busting out the spreadsheets, you're in charge of everything, you can make things happen. If you do not give attention to the other parts of your life, you're going to cause more problems than you know because you are hyper effective, and so your mess shows up on everybody else. Again, we have that human propensity to F things up. You likely need chosen spiritual practices, activities that are the opposite of your natural tendency if you're going to become a more whole and virtuous person. Again, we all do. So if this is you, if you're high in conscientiousness, I just have one spiritual practice that I suggest for you. And I don't claim to speak for God, but you need to do this, okay? You do. What I want you to do is younger family members, they could be your kids, younger siblings, whomever, take them all out to eat, but one-on-one, not as a group. And I also want you to put together an anonymous survey for all your low-level employees. Take out younger family members to eat one-on-one and put together a survey for your low-level employees. These are the people that you think waste time, the people that you think don't get it and are not dialed in. And here's what I want you to do. With those younger family members or the employees, say, what have I not been doing or have I not been offering you that you need? And whatever they say, do it. Whatever they say. It will feel ridiculous, irrelevant, silly, doesn't matter, awkward. But I got to tell you, friend, that part of you that intuits what people really need is probably off. You probably can't trust it. So if you're a get her done type, whatever a younger family member or your employees say they need from you that you are not doing, do it even if it seems crazy to you. Because I think if you do, you will experience your Creator moving towards you. And whenever your time comes to graduate this life, like my friend in the hospital, I don't think you'll have regrets. And more importantly, when the time comes for you to graduate from this life, I don't think the other people in your life will have regrets either. Lord, thank you so much for my brothers and sisters here at Midtown. Thank you that they have come here today because they hope to have some kind of connection with you. They are open, they want to grow, they want to learn, they want to hear from you. Thank you for the kind of people that they are. And I pray that you would honor this step they've taken to be here by speaking to them. And for my friends who are young or creative or kind of chill, what is the spiritual practice that you're inviting them to take on? Doing the dishes a little bit more, keeping their phone off in the morning and working out, reading scripture, asking someone they look up to about a habit they could take on. What do you have for them to do? I pray that they would be open and you would make that clear to them right now. And for my friends who kind of make the world go round, who get everything done, who are task-oriented, I pray that you would speak to them, that they would be open if you would have them to listen to younger family members and employees and whatever feedback they receive to make that change. Thank you for being a God of goodness and beauty and love, of seeking our best even when it doesn't make sense. May we have enough faith in you, our Lord Jesus, in your ways to take on some ways that seem counterintuitive to us, knowing that you're not against us, but it's because you're for us. In your name we pray. Amen.